What do Mohenjo-Daro, Pompeii, Angkor Wat, and a radioactive Soviet ghost town have in common? They were all bustling cities, until they weren't. Welcome to the world of lost cities, where climate change, economic collapse, volcanic eruptions, and occasionally people making absolutely terrible urban planning decisions turned thriving hubs into eerie ruins. If you think your neighborhood is bad, at least it hasn't been swallowed by the jungle, yet. Hey, history nerds, time travelers, and doom scrollers. Today, we're diving headfirst into the glorious, chaotic, sometimes tragic, and always fascinating story of cities that vanished off the map. But this isn't just a bunch of dusty ruins and mysterious stones. This is about how entire civilizations rose, thrived, got a little too comfortable, and then got absolutely wrecked by everything from shifting rivers to bad politics to one really badly timed volcano. Why did they disappear? What can we learn from them? And more importantly, why do cities matter so much in the first place? Let's find out. Spoiler alert. The moral of this story is don't build next to a fault line, a volcano, or a Viking with anger issues. First off, why do we care when cities vanish? Well, cities are kind of a big deal. They're not just places with buildings and traffic jams, they're the beating hearts of civilizations. Cities are where people gather, trade, invent stuff, worship gods, overthrow kings, and, let's be honest, complain about rent. They hold knowledge, culture, power, economies, and tacos. If a city collapses, it's not just some stone walls falling down, it's an entire way of life crumbling. So when we see a city disappear, we're watching the nervous system of a civilization blink out. And when multiple cities vanish across a region or an empire, that's historical cardiac arrest. Let's return to Mohenjo-Daro, an ancient superstar from the Indus Valley civilization. Back around 2600 BCE, these folks had urban planning, drainage systems, standardized bricks, and, wait for it, flushing toilets. Meanwhile, other civilizations were still poking around with sticks. So what happened? Well, turns out a 200-year drought can really ruin your day. Rivers dried up, agriculture failed, people packed their bags and left. But here's the twist. No signs of war, no mass graves, no dramatic destruction layers, just silence. Like they all collectively said, yeah, this isn't working, and left the keys under the mat. But Mohenjo-Daro wasn't alone. Take the Maya, especially the city of Tikal. They had towering temples, advanced astronomy, chocolate, and one of the most complex societies in the Americas. But they also deforested huge areas, overfarmed the land, and relied on seasonal rainfall that stopped showing up. Add in water shortages, soil exhaustion, and a dash of internal rebellion, and boom, cities collapsed, people scattered, and the jungle moved back in like it never left. Environmental collapse is one of history's sneakiest serial killers. Cities are vulnerable because they suck up huge amounts of resources. Forests, gone, water, evaporated, farmland, ruined. And if you don't adapt, nature cashes the check. Of course, sometimes Mother Nature isn't subtle. Sometimes she just blows your city up, like Pompeii in 79 AD. Mount Vesuvius didn't just erupt, it rage quit. The whole Roman city was buried under ash, freezing life mid-step. We even found a guy fleeing with a bag of gold. And apparently, terrible decision-making skills. In Jordan, Petra thrived for centuries, carved straight into rose-red cliffs. But earthquakes hit hard, and trade routes shifted. Eventually, even the Nabateans couldn't keep it together. Now it's a tourist site and the world's fanciest cave system. And don't forget Troy, immortalized by Homer. Even if the Trojan horse happened, jury's still out. Earthquakes over centuries definitely didn't help. Troy was basically destroyed and rebuilt more times than a celebrity's Instagram account. Cities are often built on trade. But what happens when the trade moves on? Ask the Kingdom of Nubia. For centuries it thrived on Nile-based trade. But when maritime trade became a thing, thanks Latin sail, river ports like Nubia were ghosted harder than your Tinder match. Same story with Angkor, Cambodia. Enormous temples, sophisticated canals, royal elephants probably. But when droughts hit and sea trade took over, Angkor slowly emptied out. The jungle said, "Mine now," and took it back. Cities need money to survive. When trade routes shift, whether from tech, war, or better shipping lanes, a once rich city can become a really awkward camping spot with some cool ruins. Now let's talk about conquest, the ultimate "you can't sit with us." Some cities weren't abandoned by nature, they were erased by design. Hattusa, the Hittite capital, was burned and abandoned during the Bronze Age collapse. Scholars think invading sea peoples, who may or may not have been angry pirates with bad fashion, wiped out key trade and political centers. Carthage, a major Mediterranean power, was razed by Rome in 146 BCE. The Romans didn't just defeat them, they salted the earth, maybe leveled the city, and made sure nobody rebuilt. That's not just conquest. That's a historical vendetta. And even in the Americas, cities like Cahokia, once the largest pre-Columbian settlement north of Mexico, may have declined from a mix of political unrest, climate change, and warfare. But it's no coincidence that the arrival of Europeans didn't exactly help. Sometimes conquerors want to destroy a city to erase a culture, history, and power base. And cities are juicy targets. They're rich, symbolic, and make excellent piles of smoldering rubble. Then there's disease. Cities cram people together. Add in questionable hygiene and some contaminated water, and boom, plague. In medieval times, cities like Venice and Constantinople were constantly battling outbreaks, and while they weren't abandoned completely, repeated pandemics drastically shrank populations and altered their trajectories. Pripyat, Ukraine is a modern echo of this. But instead of rats and fleas, we had radiation. Chernobyl's 1986 nuclear disaster turned a bustling Soviet city into an apocalyptic ghost town overnight. Fun fact, the Ferris wheel was scheduled to open the day after the meltdown. Timing is everything. The 19th and 20th centuries gave us a new kind of lost city, the boomtown, built on gold, coal, oil, and blind optimism. Bodie, California sprang up during the gold rush. Saloons, shootouts, miners with mustaches, but when the gold ran out, so did the people. Today it's a perfectly preserved ghost town with furniture, dust, and probably at least 3 ghosts judging your outfit. Hashima Island, Japan, was a coal mining colony, packed with workers. It even had a school, hospital, and swimming pool. Then the coal dried up, the company left. Everyone else followed. Today it's so spooky, it's been used in Bond films and horror games. The big lesson? Collapse isn't always fire and brimstone. Sometimes it's slow, quiet, and bureaucratic. A little drought here, a trade route shifting there, a leader ignoring the warning signs, and suddenly, you're history. The fall of a city can set off chain reactions, regional power vacuums, population migrations, the loss of libraries and cultural centers. It's not just bricks and mortar. It's knowledge, tradition, community. And here's the kicker. We're still doing the same things today. Overbuilding in dry regions? Check. Relying on unstable resource economies? Check. Ignoring climate warnings? Super check. We're not immune, we just have better plumbing. Sometimes. So what have we learned? Cities rise and fall. Sometimes they collapse under their own weight. Sometimes they're destroyed. Sometimes they're forgotten. But every time, they leave behind a warning and a story worth telling. If you enjoyed this historical tour of urban disasters, collapse, and ghost towns, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe for more hilariously educational dives into the strange, wild, and slightly terrifying corners of history. And tell us in the comments, which lost city would you want to explore? Machu Picchu? Petra? Or are you more of a ghost town with nuclear fallout kind of tourist? And remember, if you're building a city, maybe don't do it in a jungle, a desert, or near an angry volcano. Thanks for watching and see you next time, assuming our city doesn't mysteriously disappear.